Alright, so we're going to be going over the monster sets for the Greymoor patch, because a lot of people have been asking me if these monster sets, specifically for the tanking role in PvE, are even going to be used post-nerf. Most of the nerfs to the usual tanking sets, like Lord Warden, were nerfed in terms of the mitigation values from their 1-piece and 2-piece. But overall, the mitigation values being nerfed is not really a big deal for tanks in the first place. Resistances are not really gonna be hugely important. Once you hit the minimum mark, or rather what I would refer to as a minimum mark of 24,000 resistances for tanking, it's kind of whatever at that point. A lot of people have this misconception that PvE tanks must hit 32,000 or 33,000 resistances or cap, but you really honestly don't need it, even for the hardest content. Even for, like, if you're trying to know that, you don't need the highest resistances in the land. So we'll be going over to each monster set and basically giving you a rundown of which monster set's going to be good for next patch for tanking, which scenarios we could be using them for. First monster set we see on the list is going to be Grunt. Okay, well, Grunt is not really going to be a monster set for tanking, just as it is now. And I mean, maybe you can do some funky, weird hybrid build with Grunt as a tank, but not really going to be applicable for PvE in-game or trials or dungeons. For most tanking builds, Chokethorn. Now this is a pretty interesting one because they did try to buff it. I can see an application for this. I can see this having a place for some like PvE tank builds and like forming content. However, it's not really needed for most content anyway. But again, it is a consideration. Next one, Iceheart. Same story as Grunt. You don't really need it. Infernal Guardian. Again, just the same as Grunt, Iceheart. Crags, whatever. Alambris, whatever. Pirate Skeleton. For PvE tanking, you don't really need it. Selene, don't need it. Celestrix. So Celestrix is actually a pretty interesting monster set for tanks to consider. It's just sort of like a little crowd control on the side, but I don't really see it having much practical use. Sentinel, I believe, did get a slight buff in terms of the restoration of magic and stamina. But otherwise, I'm not exactly sure if they fixed the AI padding for it to see if, like, okay, if it's healing this one person out of the group, it's kind of unreliable right now in actual race scenarios unless everyone's stacked up. And there has been issues in the past where tanks running it or healers running it would see Sentinel go on to somebody else outside the group. So this is kind of debatable, but you can definitely consider this. But this is probably going to be replaced by Symphony on a tank, as we'll see here in a bit. Shadowrend. Shadowrend is for PvP it was nerfed beyond oblivion. It's like I would not really consider for PvE tanking in the first place at the moment. The nerf was more for PvP in my opinion, so not really consideration for PvE tanking. Slimecraw. Again, same story as the other DPS-oriented monster sets. Don't really need to look at it. Stormfist, it's kind of the same story as Celestrix, but it doesn't offer a CC for tanks, so not really going to be a consideration for most tanking builds. Swarm Mother. Now, Swarm Mother did not really get a nerf. It actually got a buff. Max stamina and max magic in the 1-piece bonus. And when you block an enemy's attack, they have to be ranged, because they have to attack you from 8 meters away. But some adds that are not ranged, like the melee rogue enemies that in dungeons or various arenas that throw daggers at you from a distance far away, that counts as a attack that is further than 8 meters away from you. So you do pull those melee adds in. It's not a very completely 100% reliable monster set. It does help quite a bit in grabbing the adds, especially if you're not a Dragon Knight tank. Otherwise, and you don't want to expend too much stamina for Silver Leash. Otherwise, it's gonna still be in the same place as this patch. Tremor Scale. I've been getting a lot of questions about Tremor Scale for PvE tanking next patch, and the reason being is they buffed it, incredibly so. The 1-piece bonus offers maximum stam, not a bad stat at all for tanks. The 2-piece bonus, when you taunt an enemy, you cause a Dune Ripper to burst from the ground beneath them after 1 second, dealing X amount of physical damage to all enemies within 4 meters and reducing their physical resistance by a unique debuff value of 23.95 for 8 seconds. This occurs once every 8 seconds, so you pretty much off cooldown. Now the reason why I say unique debuff value is this will stack with other sets like Alkosh, Linebreaker, Crusher, Enchant, so it's not gonna be not stackable. So this is gonna be a huge thing to have in stamina DPS compositions, because again, it only lowers the physical resistance of a boss or enemies in the 4 meter radius. So this is gonna be definitely a must-have, in my opinion, for a lot of trial groups if they want to build around more penetration for their stam DPS. So it's kind of weird that they're adding this back in, or rather adding this to Tremor Scale, considering they took out the unique debuff values from Sunder Flame and Night Mother's Gaze, which in my opinion was really cool to have, because there was like itemization play within the raid composition. I think a lot of people missed that, so maybe this could be them trying to bring it back through the monster set itemization and debuffs, or not debuffs, buffs and nerfs. But yeah, this is probably gonna be a must-have for tanking and stam DPS compositions. So keep an eye on Tremor Scale. Maybe they'll change it, maybe they won't. Troll King. So Troll King can be used for some tanking builds. Damihas, not really consideration for most tanking builds. Earth Gore. Now this was kinda nerfed, but not really. The 1-piece bonus adds 4% healing done. 2-piece bonus, when you heal yourself or an ally that is under 50% health, you conjure a pool of quenching blood underneath them. It's the same effect as right now pre-Greymoor, and healing the lowest health friendly target and target for 29,700 health over 10 seconds. A lot of people saw this part and were like, well, now we don't have that incredibly powerful burst heal in like 3 seconds, and now it's over 10 seconds. However, you gotta take note, they also adjusted the cooldown. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds. That's pretty huge. That's, in a lot of ways, that's actually a buff more so than a nerf. And it's still gonna be incredibly helpful for tanks in, I believe, Cloud Rest, where you still see tanks still use Earth Gore in harder content like Vet Cloud Rest hard mode. So it's gonna be consideration to have for both dungeons and trials for tanks, especially if you're trying to play safe or if you're playing without the healer informing content. Mauled Infernal. So this is gonna be a upcoming DPS set, so not really gonna be consideration for tanking. Balkan Scoria, same thing. Narayanith. This is gonna be a pretty interesting set as well for DPSing, but not really so much for tanking. Engine Guardian. My boy, Engine Guardian. Alright. Okay. So the 1-piece bonus adds 129 health recovery. The 2-piece bonus says when you use an ability, you have a 25% chance to summon a Dwemer Automaton to restore 550 stamina or magicka, or 1,955 health to you every 0.5 seconds for 6 seconds. This kind of got nerfed in terms of the value. Would I use it for tanking? Maybe for like very niche situations next patch as a tank in PvE. Other than that, it's I don't know. It's like whatever. The resource amount that it restores now is, I believe, slightly, actually a bit more than the 550 stamina or magicka pre-Greymoor. So it's gonna be interesting to see if tanks can use this, but I think it'll still have a place in this situations, or if you just want to use it. But there are other better sustain options out there in terms of monster sets, such as Stonekeeper, which we'll see here in a bit. But that also got nerfed, so we'll see what that happens over there. Bogdan Eye Flame. This has been used a few times in the past. I've used this a few times in the past as a tank for no death strats or score pushing strats. Will it be useful next patch? I mean, I don't think they've really did massive changes to it. This is going to be dependent on your group strats and stuff like that, but not really a huge consideration for tanking. Spawn of Mephala. So, Spawn of Mephala is not going to be any consideration, in my opinion, for tanking. Lord Warden Dusk. Here's a pretty big one. They nerfed the armor mitigation value of the 1-piece, plus they lowered the mitigation value of the 2-piece bonus. And a lot of people are saying, well, now Lord Warden is dead. It's not dead. It's like, you're still going to use Lord Warden where you're still using Lord Warden right now, pre-Greymoor. You're going to be using it as the main tank on Assembly General, because why not? There's like nothing else for you to do except maybe Symphony. If you're stacking Symphony sets in the group, you're still going to use it in scenarios where the group is stacked with you. I mean, there's a lot of fights that come to mind here. There's Rakat, hard mode on the off tank. You can wear Lord Warden. There's Sunspire, Trash. You can wear Lord Warden for. There's, I'm trying to think of more. There's like AA hard mode. You can wear Lord Warden for as the main tank. I mean, this set's not really going to go anywhere. This set's not really going to go anywhere at all. It's still going to have its applications. It's still going to have its exact same uses. The fact that they nerfed the 2-piece mitigation value is maybe something to consider, but the fact that it still offers about 5% more mitigation to the group, and the fact that it's still holding the insane uptime. Like, this has an insane uptime, guys, and it's not like it's a small AoE that's hard to get into. So it's still gonna be worth using as a tank for next patch. So I would not destroy it or whatever. Molon Kina. So Molon Kina was actually gonna get a separate rework in line with the light attack and heavy attack changes. It was supposed to like reduce the cost of your abilities, including your ultimate, but that got scrapped along with pretty much every other light attack and heavy attack proposed changes on the off PTS cycle. So this is not really going to be a consideration for tanks anymore for Greenhorn. Bloodspawn. Now Bloodspawn's another huge nerf that a lot of people have been noting. For 4-man content, or not even 4-man content, for PvE content recently, Bloodspawn's kind of been pushed to the background because there's a lot better monster sets for you to use, like Lord Warden, Symphony, and so forth. That's not really gonna, I mean, the extra ult gen is nice, the extra mitigation is nice on chance, but even then it's like, it's something you use when you have nothing else to use as a PvE tank. So will it still have its uses? Yeah, but I don't think the nerf is really gonna matter for PvE tanks, in my opinion. This is more of a nerf for PvP, and to be honest, it kind of needed an adjustment, because it's right now it's just too good for PvP, in my opinion, compared to the other sets. So we'll see. Malabeth the Scourger. Malabeth the Scourger is a pretty interesting monster set. You can still use it as a tank next patch for either 4-man content or trial content. It hasn't really changed too much in terms of its utility, or rather value to yourself as a tank. You still get the major vitality, and it has a pretty insane high uptime. So if you want to use it, you can use it. Obviously this is a different story for the endgame tanks that don't need it, but it's still a good set to have on demand if needed. Velodreth, same thing as the other one. And of course, our favorite monster set of all, Mighty Chudan. Chudan has broken loose. You know, they took Chudan out to the backyard and, you know, put a shotgun to Chudan's head, and we're like, I'm sorry, girl, but you gotta go. But anyway, the 1-piece bonus was kind of one of the 2-piece ones was kind of loaded, in my opinion. So the nerf, I could kind of see that from a perspective of, okay, we need to adjust the mitigation value. And again, as I said earlier, the mitigation value is like whatever. It's for any PvE tank. So we don't really need to look at that nerf. The 2-piece bonus adding the max health is still there, so that's pretty nice actually. And you still gain major resolve / ward at all times, increasing your physical and spell resistances by 5,280. The only time I've ever used Chudan in a endgame scenario or in a trial is on a Dragon Knight tank in Bet Asylum Sanctorium hard mode, and the reason being is bar space, and also using balance for progression groups and other scenarios can be deadly in there. So that's why I use Chudan, and that's the only time I ever used Chudan. Otherwise, if you still want the bar space to not, you know, if you don't want to slot balance, if you have a high enough mastery recovery stat, or if you If you simply just need the VAR space and you don't need a skill that provides major ward, major resolve, then yeah, Chudan's still gonna be good. Chudan's still gonna be good. Next set, Durvokun. This is another huge monster set that a lot of people PM me about. They've been PMing me about Durvokun since like 3 weeks ago, dude. You know, every time I woke up in the morning, people, like, I would look at my Discord PMs, like, half of them are about, is Durvokun gonna be used next patch? And I'm like, yes, motherfucker, yes, Durvokun's gonna be used next patch. And here's a reason why. The nerfed Durvokun, the adjustment in Durvokun, it was kind of needed. I mean, minor maim plus minor defile in PvP, and even in PvE, minor maim, that high uptime, I don't know, that was just too good, in my opinion. So I kind of agree with that adjustment. The fact that it still offers max health is good. 2-piece bonus. The uptime will be fine. It's still going to be decent uptime. I use it in the PTS Kind's Aegis run for trash and certain fights. You'll still use it in Black Risk Prison. It's like, why not? So again, just like Lord Warden, you'll still see an application for it in the exact same places you see pre-Greymoor. So you're not getting rid of it. You're not getting rid of it. Zan, not a monster, not really a consideration for tanking in monster set wise. Baylor, only if you're going to be like an off-tank DPS. Vycosa. So, they didn't really touch Vycosa. I know Vycosa sort of saw a nerf, and a lot of people wanted me to update the video review I did on Vycosa when they tried to nerf the heck out of it. And thankfully, they saw the feedback on Vycosa from a lot of people, including myself, and they said, okay, well, instead of nerfing it to Oblivion and clapping it to heaven, as Outcast would say, we're going to actually just do a 20% weapon and spell damage reduction. But if you try to stack Weakening Enchants or Mending on the same fight, it's going to be a weaker monster set, and that's fine by me. When you bash an enemy you taunted, you frighten them with a deafening howl, lowering their weapon and spell damage by 20% for 5 seconds. And the 5-second duration is pretty nice, especially the boss mechanics are going to last a bit longer or around the same length of that 5 seconds. Primary boss to use this on is Navinta's hard mode in Veteran Sunspire. The recent God Slayer we got, which you can find in another video if you want to look at the full run for the God Slayer main tank perspective, I used Vycosa on Navi hard mode post nerf, so it's still a good set both now and next patch for Greymoor. Stonekeeper. So this is another one that sort of got nerfed, and a lot of people are saying, well, that sucks. But again, 1-piece bonus. It's pretty much a prismatic enchantment. 2-piece bonus. When you block an attack, you gain an energy charge stack. When you gain 6 charges, you release the energy, restoring 2480 stam and magicka and healing for 2480. So I think they did adjust. Charges can be accumulated by up to once every 0.25 seconds. So I think, I don't know if that's a new addition. I don't think so, but I think I saw something about the patch notes mentioning that. But otherwise, it's still going to be a pretty good set in terms of sustain. So just like every other set I've mentioned that we're still going to use for next patch, you can still use it, and it's definitely going to be a very nice sustain option regardless of the nerfs for most tanks in PvE. Symphony Blades. Now this is a pretty interesting set. Symphony Blades, 1-piece bonus, adds 4% healing done. 2-piece. Initially, it looks like a nerf. When you heal an ally who's under 50% of their primary resource, grant them Radius Favor, which restores 570 magicka or stamina every 1 second for 6 seconds. What was nerfed was the value of the magicka and stamina back every 1 second for 6 seconds. This set is so damn good in like 4-man content, especially. Even if one healer or one tank wears it, and it's so good in trials where you can stack multiple Symphony Blades. Like, no one ever has sustained issues. But next patch, it looks like a nerf, but it's not, kind of. Just like the previous monster set we looked at. Which one was it? It was Durvokun and... whatever. Anyway, it looks like a nerf, but it's not. Because you can only now wear one Symphony in one group. So whether this is allocated to a tank or a healer is pretty much going to be up to the group. If we are considering the fact that a healer is going to be wearing Roaring Opportunist and Jorvold, and the other healer is wearing Ola Rime and whatever else, with a DPS wearing MK Zen, the Roaring Opportunist and Jorvold healer probably won't be using Symphony Blades, is my guess, for the damage output needed to get the higher uptime on Roaring Opportunist. The Olo healer could wear this, but again, this is like more up to the group, in my opinion. So either one tank or one healer is going to wear this for the entire group, because there is no more cap on how many people Symphony will proc. So if you're in a group of 12, one person's going to wear it, and everyone's going to get Symphony Blades every 18 seconds. Or technically every 12 seconds. Okay, so Grunt Wolf. This was used for my Sork tank build recently. It got nerfed. Probably will need to rework that. So again, was it too good of a sustain set in my opinion for a lot of scenarios? So I can see the reasoning for the adjustment. But for most tank builds, it's not going to be a consideration, I don't think. Marcelok, whatever. Mother's CN8, whatever. Kionar's Nightmare, whatever. And that's it. That's pretty much it.